And now it's time for our speaker. And those of you who come here regularly know our speaker well. She's our office goddess, our office administrator, and does so much behind the scenes to keep us up and running. And today she's going to speak to us, and I'm so glad, looking forward to her talk. Please welcome at home, Bonnie Masterjohn.
Yay, good morning. All right, so the title of my talk is The Art of Science of Mind. Kathy and I talked about my speaking some months ago, and this was my idea, and at first I was so excited about it. I mean, what a great thing to talk about, because I really do believe there are some great correlations between painting a painting, for instance, and science of mind or manifestation. But then this virus happened, and I thought to myself, how can I stand here before you? Well, actually, I'm on camera instead of having you all in my audience, which is probably wonderful for you because you didn't even have to get dressed today. I thought about it myself. I thought maybe I should just wear my pajamas, but then I thought, no, that really wouldn't be appropriate. Well, I thought to myself, if we do create our own reality, and I really believe that we do, how in the world did we create this? And so I thought about that, and I thought about some of the things that I have done or said or thought about or maybe even treated for in my life that could have resulted in maybe not a virus, but in my situation, just a lot of downtime, a lot of quiet time, a lot of solitude. And I'm probably thinking many of you out there have that same situation. So, but I don't have to tell you about how there's been fear and there's been some loneliness. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about being lonely. You know, not everybody has a family that they live with. People are separated by distance, so they can't go and visit each other. So there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. But I have to think about the fact that in my own life, when I really look at my own life, how much of that is actually happening to me. I mean, I don't really mind being alone and having some downtime. I think that that's appropriate, that we do that sometimes. It's usually only when I'm really sick that I spend time, not getting out of bed or, just sitting around in my pajamas or whatever. But that's not appropriate. We all need that balance in our life. So maybe this is something that we're learning from this. And what I really thought about was how truly blessed that I am. For instance, I have a brand new, at least new to me, car. I sold my property that I've been stressing about for, about forever. And I live in a beautiful old home, perfectly located. I'm central to so much. I'm dry, I'm safe, and I have food. So if you don't know what it means for me to say that I live with Doris Saxer, let's just put it like this. I live with the queen of cuisine, and there's always plenty of food there. So there's no problems like that. I'm healthy, happy. My kids, my family, my friends, everyone in my world is doing well. And I give thanks for that. I'm so seriously, what have I really got to worry about? Well, absolutely nothing, actually. And this is actually the perfect time for me to compose my thoughts and write a talk. So I just knew I wanted to paint something. The actual subject matter came to me when I received pink roses for my birthday. This is when I knew I wanted to paint pink roses. So you'll see this painting behind me. As with all manifestation, at least the kind that I'm conscious of. It all starts with a desire. After my decision to paint the roses, I made a few other decisions. I knew I wanted to paint with acrylic, and I knew I wanted to paint on canvas. So I prepared the canvas. And there's a picture coming up of my priming the canvas. And I used primer for any of those of you that are painters, because it's a little less expensive than gesso. So I wanted to create a blank space. I actually purchased this canvas from our garage sale that we had back in November, and it had a print on it. But I love the fact that it was square. I thought that was interesting. And it has it's what you call a gallery wrap. You'll see it's kind of thick on the edges, which makes it even more interesting. So let's see, where am I? Okay, and so I decided to paint a colored ground, and that would be the second picture. I like painting on top of a colored ground because it gives more depth to the painting, and in this case it was pink. If you know me, you know that I have been wanting a new car for a very, very long time. My old car had become less and less dependable. I loved that car. I still love that car. It's still sitting in my garage because I haven't been able to get rid of it yet. I don't know if it's because I don't want to be around strangers and have them driving my car, or if it's just that I can't let go of it. I have to work on that. But many things had started going wrong with it. The air conditioning was no longer working. I'd replaced the battery twice, the starter, the alternator, all the tires. I mean, the list is endless. But in both situations, I started with desire, with my painting, and in the case of my car, I had some of what Abraham Hicks refers to as contrast in my life. So I have to say that there wasn't the same kind of contrast when it came to my painting. No, instead, that was just more of the desire. But a lot of people ask, is it okay to create things in my life that I just want, or should I always focus on need? And you know what? I think that could be a stumbling block for some people. I always say, I need what I want. In either situation, one might ask, how specific should I be? I hear this question often. Some would say, not at all. Let God figure it out. The whole thy will be done thing. I say, be as specific as you want to be. I wanted some specific things in my car, and I knew it when I saw it because of those things. I knew that it was mine. It was the first dealership that I went to, and it was the first car I saw on the dealership floor. I knew it immediately. So some of the specifics I knew as far as my painting was, the canvas, the acrylics, the palette. I knew that I wanted pink roses with a green background, the composition, how many flowers, and the placement of the flowers. I was taught to block in, that would be the third picture, in the painting as quickly as possible by both or all of my professors, I should say. My professor would make us stand up and paint on huge canvases and cover the entire canvas as quickly as possible. And details always come last. So did you hear that? Details always come last. It is this step of painting that in one of the most important steps of manifestation, and the one we usually get wrong most often, is we sit back and we visualize possibly, or at least think about that thing, whatever it is that we want to have in our life. And it could be something like a feeling, or it could be a better, healthier situation, or could be a relationship. It doesn't have to be a thing. But when we think about it, we realize that we don't have it. And that is being too specific, because we're not supposed to be looking at that. We're supposed to be focusing on our desire. So if one were to use that same kind of thinking when it came to painting or even building an airplane, anything works like that. If you just sat around and thought about how it doesn't exist yet, then no one would ever build airplanes. No one would ever paint paintings. Think of what our world would be like then. So the head of the art department at the university, while I was there, he used to say, if you know how it is going to turn out, then that is not art, that is craft. And when you think about it, it is so true. Because when you have a craft, you know exactly how it's going to turn out, because it's going to be just like the model or the prototype. But in art, you never know how it's going to turn out. Even though many of us sit down with our canvas, or stand there, as my professor would make us do, and get this idea in our head of exactly what we wanted to paint and how we wanted it to turn out. And the truth is, it never happens. And so if it's not turning out how we want, we get frustrated, we try to struggle, there's strife, there's all kinds of issues. My one professor, Professor Chow, he always told me, you can tell when the artist struggled. He could tell, I couldn't tell, but he showed us a Monet, a painting that Monet had done, and he said you can tell by he was struggling when he painted that, because you could see how stilted his brushstrokes were. They weren't relaxed and fluid and flowing like they usually were in most of his paintings. And it's because he was trying to get a certain look or a certain thing that he wanted to have. So it's the same with life. You know, you get this idea in your head that you want to manifest something, and then the next thing that you realize that you are struggling over how it should look, how it should turn out, what it's supposed to feel like, what it's going to be like. And the truth is it's hardly ever like that, because that's not really our job. That's the universe's job, or God, or spirit, or divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it. So that's true for painting. It's true for any kind of manifestation. If you're holding on to an idea, you struggle, things don't turn out how you want, you sometimes will miss them. You will miss the real art. You'll miss the beautifulness of it. You might even miss the manifestation. You might not notice that it's in your life and probably been there for a little while. My one professor, Professor Chow, used to say, don't tell the whole story. And what he meant by that was you cannot paint all that needs to be painted. You just cannot. So one of the things that he would say is, you squint at that. That's what he would say, squint at that. Because when you squint at things, you blur it just a little bit. And then things that were not so obvious to you at first will pop out at you. And then you'll know what to work on next. Artists always step back. If you notice when they're painting, they step back. And even when you're viewing a painting, especially an acrylic or an oil painting, you need to step back. Because if you look up close, you will notice that it's made up of many brush strokes. It is not the thing that's being represented or painted, because that's not our job. That's the creator's job. The creator created the roses, the pink roses. I can only paint a painting of pink roses. And I can paint the best painting of pink roses that I can, but it's never going to be the pink roses. So instead, we just represent them as best as we possibly can. So in those strokes, in the brush strokes that we look at, our mind will fill in whatever needs to be filled in. If you were to look closely at one of Monet's paintings of lilies, and it would be easy to look closely, some of them were as large as a whole wall, at least long. If you were to look closely, you would see that there isn't even a drawing of a lily. There's just the stroke that makes the brain fill in the idea of the lily. And that's what Professor Chow meant when he said, don't tell the whole story. Because you can't. You'd be painting forever, right? Trying to get it perfect, which is really probably the worst thing you can do when it comes to trying to create art. All you can really do is allude to it. Okay, so how does this all apply to life? Well, we can't get really specific to begin with. I mean, we can get fairly specific. I knew I wanted a silver car. I knew that I wanted it to have good working air conditioning. I knew that I wanted, those little awning things that go above the windows. I didn't know that I needed those until I had a car that had them, and now I know. I have to have those. Let's see, what else? Oh, a radio that you can turn up and down. For years, mine was so quiet, you could hardly hear it. And then all of a sudden, just about a month or so ago, it was just blasting loud, and I couldn't turn it down. So I would try to muffle it by putting things in front of the speaker so that I could stand to have the radio on while I was driving. Yeah. Okay, so I knew a couple of things. I knew I wanted a hatchback. I knew that I probably wanted a Honda. I even thought that I wanted a Fit because that's what Ravani had, and I loved that little car. So cute. So those things were handled, but I didn't care what size engine it had. I didn't care how much gas it would hold. I mean, I'd like it to have good gas mileage, but what I'm trying to say is there are many, many, many specific things about cars that I know nothing about and I don't need to know because the universe will take care of all of that and fill that all in. Same with a painting. You just allude to it. You just paint the strokes and let the person's mind fill in all the details because our minds are brilliant. So also, when it comes to creating our own reality, we have to realize that the reality that we are living right now, whatever that is our own reality. And there's so much to be thankful for and blessed about when we think about it. In my instance, I'm not sick, right? Nobody that I love and know is. My church family, everybody's healthy. I'm just knowing that that's the way that it's meant to be. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in some other world or some other reality, but we're not really responsible for that. We are responsible for ourselves, always, just for ourselves, beginning with ourselves. And so yes, of course we need to be accountable. Of course we need to be responsible, but the truth is that we can only take care of this little space that's in front of us and ourselves. And so, love each other, practice distance with love. Recognize that this is a world pandemic. This doesn't just belong in our state or our country or even our continent. This is everywhere. And allow yourselves to really recognize the truth of that there are no boundaries, there's no differences. There's nothing that separates us from everybody else that's on this planet. And the virus has taught us that in a weird kind of a way. It makes us realize how connected we all are, how important life is to each and every individual. And I don't know what that has to do with painting, but okay, that's it for me. Thank you so much. Oh, throw the other pictures up. Oh, the blocked in picture. Or maybe it's on this side of me. I don't know. It might be up there. Could be over here. Thank you.